Good evening, and welcome back to From Beyond. Tell me, my dear ones, have you ever felt that peculiar chill when passing by a mirror, as if someone else was looking back, not quite you? Some call it imagination, others call it an omen. Tonight, we descend into one of humanity's oldest and most unsettling mysteries, the doppelganger, the double that walks unseen, the reflection that refuses to vanish. So close your doors, dim your lights, and listen carefully. Sometimes, the one who follows you wears your own face.
Imagine standing face to face with yourself, not a reflection in a mirror, but a separate sentient entity that looks, speaks, and acts exactly as you do. This chilling concept, the notion that somewhere out there, or perhaps right beside you, walks your identical twin, is one of the oldest and most persistent myths in human history. We call this figure the doppelganger. The name itself is German, meaning double walker, a term famously coined by the novelist Jean-Paul Richter in 1796. Across centuries and cultures, the core structure of the myth remains unnervingly similar. The double is often an ethereal spirit, physically identical to a person, and nearly universally the appearance of one's double is considered a bad omen, frequently signalling tragedy, madness, or even imminent death. But were these sightings merely folklore, or do they point to a deeper, more unsettling reality? We begin our journey by examining one of the most thoroughly documented and frightening paranormal accounts of the 19th century, the case of the French teacher whose ghostly double ruined her life. The story of Émilie Saget is perhaps one of the most famous and unsettling cases of doppelgangers ever recorded. Saget was a French teacher in the mid-19th century, described as an excellent educator whom her students adored. Despite her talent, she struggled to maintain employment, changing schools about 19 times in just 16 years. The disturbing reason was the constant presence of her spectral double. In 1845, when Saget was 32, she was teaching at a girls' boarding school. It was here that the true terror of her condition became fully visible. Students repeatedly saw the phantom twin or clone of the teacher. The double was physically identical to Saget and would often mimic her exact movements, for instance, standing beside her as she wrote on the chalkboard, imitating the writing motions though holding nothing in its hand. Crucially, Émilie Saget herself never saw her double. However, whenever the doppelganger appeared, Saget would sometimes become weak, groggy, or enter a kind of trance, appearing drained of her energy. The sightings escalated drastically in the summer of 1846. 42 students were gathered in the hall for a sewing lesson. Through the windows, they could clearly see the actual Émilie Saget walking tranquilly in the garden. Yet, the phantom double suddenly entered the room and sat down in the professor's chair, ready to give the lesson. This was the first time the double was seen entirely separate from the teacher's physical body. The girls, terrified but courageous, resolved to approach the figure. They tried to communicate, but the phantom clone did not respond or interact. When one student finally tried to touch it, she felt a strange force surrounding the phantom that seemed to push her away. After they managed to push closer and touch the figure, it simply vanished. When questioned, Saget confirmed she'd been in the garden, but claimed that while there, she'd been intensely concentrating on the idea of teaching the sewing class to the girls. When she was in this trance-like state, she claimed to remember the doppelganger's actions as if they were her own. Adding a layer of supernatural mystery, Saget's own roommate, also a teacher at the school, claimed to have seen the clone exit her sleeping body, a phenomenon some speculate could be a form of astral projection. This astral body, or clone, seemed to operate autonomously. As the appearances grew more frequent, parents of the students, terrified by the paranormal occurrences, began withdrawing their daughters from the school. Eventually, the school had no choice but to dismiss Saget. The ultimate fate of Émilie Saget remained shrouded in mystery. After leaving the school, she simply disappeared from the face of the earth. The case is considered unsolved, with theories ranging from her simply running away to the possibility that the clone was actually an evil genius or spirit that eventually did something bad to her. The phenomenon of the doppelganger often manifests less as a full physical entity and more as a fleeting visual anomaly, particularly a sign of impending fate. The famous US President Abraham Lincoln known for both his honesty and his strong interest in paranormal phenomena, experienced just such an unsettling vision. The sighting occurred as Lincoln was resting in his carriage, or coche. He happened to look into a mirror and saw not one, but two reflections of himself. When he attempted to get up and observe the reflection more closely, the doppelganger image vanished. When he lay back down, the double immediately reappeared. Lincoln described what he saw as an image of himself that was displaced by a second, paler image of himself. He tried repeatedly to make the double reappear, but was unsuccessful. His wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, who was deeply steeped in the superstitions and omens associated with doubles, immediately offered a chilling interpretation. The presence of the second image meant that Lincoln would be elected for a second term. However, the fact that the second image was distorted, or paler, and that it vanished upon closer inspection, signified that he would not live until the end of that term. This deeply unsettling premonition, witnessed in a simple mirror, proved tragically accurate. Lincoln's experience fits the classic narrative of the doppelganger as a bad omen or a warning. This dual reflection, a primary image and a secondary faded image, is often associated with the concept of a dual destiny or a fatal future. The psychological depth of the doppelganger myth deeply fascinated 19th century writers who sought to explore the darker contours of the human mind. The double became a crucial tool for analysing internal conflict and mental illness. The celebrated Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky, whom some critics view as a precursor to Freud, utilised the double to expose mental degradation. In his novella The Double, he details the agonising journey of the humble public servant Yakov Petrovich Golyadkin. Golyadkin, tormented by his monotonous routine and complex of inferiority, craves social acceptance. Unable to realise his ambitions, he psychologically creates a second self, Golyadkin II, who embodies everything Golyadkin I wishes to be, more vivacious and respected. This psychological projection quickly turns on its creator. Golyadkin II begins to usurp the original Golyadkin's life, leading the latter into intense paranoia and a belief that a vast conspiracy exists against him. The narrative is a meticulous study of a man's slow descent into insanity. The double ends tragically with Golyadkin being removed by his doctor to an asylum, fundamentally proving the narrative's focus on madness. The American master of the Gothic, Edgar Allan Poe, explored a similar internal struggle. In his 1839 short story, William Wilson, the double appears not as a physical entity to others, but as a tormenting voice of conscience perceived only by the depraved narrator. Poe utilised the doppelganger phenomenon as a representation of hallucination, a neurological phenomenon he avidly studied. Poe's approach reflects his deep interest in the emerging science of his time, studying mental diseases, neurological phenomena, and hallucinations, including the doppelganger hallucination. The French writer Guy de Maupassant also had a tragic personal connection. He allegedly met his own doppelganger, who dictated a story about a man whose sanity was consumed by an evil spirit. Soon after completing that story, Maupassant's own mental health rapidly deteriorated, culminating in his eventual death in an asylum years later. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the doppelganger evolved, reflecting societal fears about individuality and control. José Saramago, Nobel laureate, explored the double not as an inner demon or a ghost, but as a purely material duplicate. In his 2002 novel The Double Man, protagonist Tertuliano Maximo Afonso discovers an actor who is his physical mirror image, sharing the same date of birth. The double here is external and real. Tertuliano becomes consumed by a paranoid obsession with this twin. This fixation drives him to the brink of his sanity, as sharing his identity with another becomes unbearable. According to the classical mythos, two identical people cannot coexist. One must eliminate the other. Saramago used this premise to criticize globalization and the death of the individual, where unique characteristics are lost. From a scientific perspective, modern psychology often views the double as a symptom of psychosis or a neurological disorder. The visual perception of one's own body outside oneself, or the hallucination of seeing one's own double, autoscopic or heautoscopic phenomena, is nearly always simultaneous with mental illness. The doppelganger is often interpreted as an external projection of the self, resulting from the failure to perceive the I as a cohesive unit. This is strongly supported by historical clinical cases, such as Eve White, who exhibited two opposing personalities, the submissive Eve White and the rebellious Eva Black, popularized in The Three Faces of Eve. This psychiatric view sees the doppelganger as a manifestation of a repressed personality, a type of dissociative identity disorder, much like Dostoevsky's projection of Goliathkin II. The long history of the doppelganger, from ancient prophecy to modern pathology, proves its enduring relevance. The phenomenon touches upon humanity's deepest anxieties regarding identity, fate, and sanity. Historical cases such as the mysterious demise of Emily Sagie and the disturbing prophetic vision of Abraham Lincoln cemented the belief that seeing one's double is an encounter with the terrifying unknown. Indeed, the myth persists even today, driving modern endeavours like the 2015 website Twin Stranger, created by Irish youth to help people find their material duplicates across the globe. However, the modern fascination can take sinister turns, far beyond mere coincidence. The terrifying idea that two identical lives cannot coexist, as explored in Saramago's fiction, still resonates, reminding us that the double, whether physical or psychological, remains a potent symbol of fragmentation and a perpetual messenger of misfortune. I have told you what I know. Whether you believe it or not is entirely up to you.
If mirrors could whisper, what secrets would they tell? Thank you for daring to look beyond the glass with me tonight. Until we meet again, remember, not every reflection wishes you well. Sleep peacefully, if you can.